Hey, I'm Jade Dungey. I work for Team Honda HRC and I work for Chase Sexton. Starting with the Chase's front of his bike, we run an 827 Renthal bend. On the grips, it's just a softest grip that Renthal makes because Chase prefers a softer grip for his hands. The brake and the clutch on the master cylinders, we run a Works lever that Arc Bob makes for us. This year we asked for them not to be coated just so we can clean them up every weekend. And then on top of the master cylinders, Works Connection makes us these cool little anodized covers with the rider's numbers on them. And on the clutch, it's just HRC. For the throttle tube, we run a Works Connection. It's basically a copy of the stock reel. We just prefer the aluminum one, just a little safer for racing if they crash, and holds up a little bit better. On the throttle tube, the cam is all production aluminum billet piece that more helps for when it crashes and stuff. The plastic one works good, but we just do it for a little safety margin when they crash. Chase's clutch and brake leverage and stuff, he prefers the clutch out a little bit and the brake's it's a little bit in, but it's kind of like your standard position. We have a new ratio this year that came on the production bike, so we figuring that out a little bit with his fingers where he likes to clutch, but right now he's kind of in a neutral spot. Moving down on the triple clamps, he runs a Works triple clamp. It's all billet, HRC spec. It's a Works transponder holder. It's kind of been around for years. It's nice not having to zip tie the transponder onto the fork, because when you gotta do fork changes and stuff, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do that and clip the zip ties, so we just make a nice billet one and clips on there good. Up on front, we have the factory Showa fork. Everything's done in-house at Showa. Trey Rain's assigned to Chase at Showa, and he works close with Shane Drew, our lead chassis guy in-house, and they come up with settings and really tailor it to each rider's needs. And Trey came from Geico and then has been in-house at Showa the last couple of years, and with Chase's and Trey's background working at Geico together, we brought him on this year and help Chase kind of fine-tune some stuff, and so far it's been going really good. For the front brake, we run just a standard brake line, and then it's paired with factory Nissan caliper. It's billet, and every weekend it's kind of cool. It's not coated, so we polish it and kind of make it all look pretty. The pistons are pretty much the same as stock. It's just different type materials. It's billet versus cast. We pair that with a 260 Utaka rotor, and then just to keep a little protection, we run a little carbon disc guard, keep it from hitting rocks or getting other rider's wheel or something hitting it and bending it. For the wheels, we run a factory hub, and that's paired with a DID rim, DID spokes. We beefed up the spokes a little bit from production, just kind of meet our racing needs. There's not much between production and what we race. And then in the front, we run a Works Connection whole shot device, and it's actually really nice. It's just one little clip, and you pretty much every time Chase sets the button, we get it every time, and it's kind of nice little piece, and it's really simple. The starting device, Chase runs his kind of in the middle. He's a little bit taller. He's not as deep as Kenny is. I think Chase is just a bigger dude, and he rides over the front of the bike, so he's able to keep it from wheeling off the gate. Just on the front end, like as far as the way the levers are positioned, and where his bars are at, and steering stem, I kind of just set it up for how when I rode, and then me and Lars always joke around because I guess Wyndham was kind of the same way when Lars worked for him, and so we just kind of set up how we ride, and they hop on, and they're pretty happy, so that's nice. For the start button, I think it was like from the two-stroke era. We run this little billet housing that has the same function as your production bike. It's just a little beefed up in case of a crash or something. And then on the left side, we got a kill switch when a rider wants to switch maps or whatever. Pretty standard with how all the other bikes are now. So we got that secondary start button underneath the frame, and for some reason the rider were to crash or bike were to hit it and wreck it, we have that secondary start button, a little security. Moving to the fuel tank, that's all production. Come outdoors, we'll have a Works one, just a little more volume. For the radiators, right now we're just running production. For the radiator cap, I think production's 1.1. We bump it up to 1.8 just to kind of meet our racing needs when temperatures and whatnot. And then we have some factory blue radiator hoses, a little more beefed up than production. I think more for just lightweight. We use some outer curs on there. It kind of keeps it nice and tight. With the radiator spigots coming out of the head and the bottom end, we have a cool little aluminum welded piece for the bottom end spigot, and then for the top it's just acodized. The spigot goes into a magnesium water pump cover. It's pretty cool having that for weight, because all race teams nowadays were really big on weight, so it's nice to save there. Right now it's really tough to find a nice carbon guy who could make a really good skid plate and not affect the flex characteristics of the frame and not make it too rigid. So came into the shop, this was maybe a couple months ago, and there was a skid plate sitting on the bench, and we looked at him like, man, that come from Japan? And they're like, no, it came from CMT. I guess he lives up in Victorville, and he just did this as a hobby. So we tried it with our test guy Trey, and he felt good on the bike, didn't affect the handling characteristics. So we outsourced that, and he made us a couple for the race bike. It has awesome coverage on the engine, protects the frame really well. It's actually available available to the public if you want to buy it. Yeah, for 2021, Yosh has their RS12 system. They've spent months fine-tuning this system, and there's a lot of state-of-the-art design stuff that went into it. You know, with Yosh over the years, it's just nothing but top-notch quality product. You know, the riders, we tailor it to their engine needs and handling, and with the header pipe, we have an O2 sensor, and that just we can keep an eye on map fuel if it's running too rich or too lean. You'll see a bunch of like electronic auto sport connectors. We just do that. Those are nice waterproof, and it leads into our data system. Data ports and everything, all the connectors are kind of out where you can see them. Yeah, it's just for ease, so the mechanics can clip them in there. It's nice and clean, and it's we could put them on the inside, but you got the gas tank there rubbing it, so it's more just for an ease. Lars Lindstrom, our crew chief, he actually is in charge of all our data harness and our wire harnesses, and he works with the factory and makes it as lightweight and simple and reliable as possible, so it's nice having that. Yeah, everything's a factory Honda HRC. We have in-house engine guys, Bob, who's our head engine developer, and then we got Josh and Wu. They do a heck of a job tailoring to the rider's needs. You know, the bottom end's a lot of factory works parts, transmission, and all that good stuff just for reliability. And then as far as power delivery, Chase and Kenny, they ride the bike down low. They really roll on the throttle. So as far as mapping and engine characteristics, him and Kenny are pretty much identical. Worked a lot on bottom end, and Chase really rides the bike and the meat of the power down low and loves a lot of torque. So we're able to meet some of his needs going to this new generation bike. The clutch is all Hinson. You know, they make really reliable parts. We can tailor the clutch to each rider's needs. You know, having the hydraulic clutch is nice. You don't have to be as finicky when you go to tighten the clutch, so it automatically adjusts. So actually, Chase isn't too hard on the clutches. I change them every couple hours. That's just what we do for racing. We have the availability of parts. But if you look at the kind of whitish tan color on the clutch cover, that's a coating they put on the magnesium to kind of help it. I guess it's a very porous material, and it could leak fluid, so they have to put a coating on it just for longevity. But as far as heat, it doesn't really do much for dissipating heat. And then the outer clutch cover Hinson makes, that's acadized, and that's just more of a nice, clean, hard finish durability wise. The master cylinder for the rear brake is a Works HRC part. It doesn't have the window in it. The brake pedal itself is production. Honda just puts a tie tip, more for weight, makes it a little bit sharper. And then as far as the brake pedal spring, that's OEM. And then we have a clevis that Hinson makes for us. Simpler piece, has a little cotter pin that holds the clevis at the bottom, and then it has the blue nut on the top, and it's just more for make it look clean. And we run the Works pedal, and you'll see that it has a little brake stop on the back, and that's kind of if a rider were to hit something, or if it would jam the brake up, that kind of stops it so the guts don't, come falling out, from a big impact or something. But it happened, I think, way back in the day. Now you don't really see that because the parts are a lot beefier, but it's just a little more added safety and precaution. Same with the brake snake. If a rider hits an impact or hits a tough block, that aluminum, it is aluminum at the end of the day, and it does bend with any impact, so it's more kind of pushing out too much, and that brake snake kind of helps, it keeps its place. Yeah, moving forward chassis wise with the engine hangers and all that stuff, right now we're on production. With this new bike, there's a lot of R&D that went into the new frame design, so the riders are pretty happy and aren't really searching for stuff, so we really haven't messed with that too much. We do have options, but both guys prefer the production hangers. With Chase not being a small rider, we just run production subframe. Well, one of the parts that really stand out on a factory Honda is their billet foot pegs and mounts machined out of one block of titanium, and they're pretty expensive. You'll see a lot of knockoffs nowadays, and they do a pretty good job, but there's nothing that beats a Works Honda foot peg. It's just the machining and the quality like no other. His little foot peg position's a little bit farther back just because he's a bigger guy, and he really likes to load the front and ride over the front. We've been trying to kind of move him back a little bit in the cockpit just to kind of keeping him in a more of a neutral position when he's coming into corners and whatnot. It's all basically production rear caliper and hanger. We cut off the little tabs for the plastic mount at the bottom. We get rid of all the steel and put tie in it and put aluminum banjo bolts in it. The line itself is just production. Rear brake, the piston's just a production. Seals are production. Everything's production. And the rear caliper is paired with the Yutaka disc, and that's mounted to our factory rear hub, DID spokes, nipples, and DID rim. With Chase, we kind of go back and forth with tire selection. Nowadays a lot of some guys run the 120, 110, they go back and forth, but Chase being a bigger guy and he's good on throttle, we stick to the 120. And Dunlop provides us with all race spec tires. It's pretty similar to what the consumer can buy. Usually we get it first and then we test it, and then the consumer gets it within a year or two. Dunlop, can't thank those guys enough. With the axle blocks, we run a Hinson. It's a Works part, but Hinson makes it for us. It's just a nice billet axle block, and as far as adjustment, you can turn, if you're going to do a sprocket change, you can turn the axle backwards, and then you don't have to change the chain adjustment. Yeah, you keep the same chain adjustment, you just change the axle blocks, and I think it's about 3-4 mil about when you do a gearing change. So for sprockets, we run Renthal. They take care of us on all those needs, and they're really durable. We have a DID chain. The actual chain guide's a works part. It's basically, it doesn't have the extra window like production has, and it was more meant for mud. They designed it for, but nowadays we just use it in Supercross and Motocross, and it's just, yeah, a nice little aluminum piece. For the chain, we just run a rivet. You'll see a lot of teams nowadays, safety precaution, we run a rivet link. Yeah, it's just, you've heard a lot of people, sometimes they have the master link come off, so it's just more a little safety margin we do. Yeah, as far as the rear shock with Showa, they have these cool, almost like a candy apple red spring, but it comes from Japan like that, and then the shock is just their Showa work shock. Chase and Supercross, as far as suspension wise, he kind of likes his, stuff a little bit on the firmer side. He likes the rear a little bit low and the front a little tall. He works with James a lot as far as riding technique, and I think James has a little bit of a knack with suspension, picking out some stuff, so he helps Chase a little bit there on bike setup. Yeah, with this new generation bike, we have a couple different options for linkage, but right now Chase is pretty happy on the stock setup. For Twin Air, we run the Supercross filter. As far as like airbox and all that good stuff, it's stock. We run an LE battery. It's a little bit smaller for lightweight, and it has really good cranking power and longevity. Throttle jockey hooks us up. If you look at the small detail, they cut all the little graphics out for weight, and that's huge for us, because if you were to sticker the whole bike up, you're adding 2 to 3 pounds. So especially with how much money we spend in titanium and stuff, that really helps. And then as far as the seat, Chase doesn't run a pleated seat. He really just likes the grippy material. And when we had the ribs on at first, but it was kind of hurting his butt, so we just went to a no pleated seat, and he's been pretty happy so far. He's not too picky with seats. I have to kind of keep up on seats, because if they collapse, he does get picky, because that affects just the ride height of when he's riding the bike. But the shift lever, it's a factory HRC part, and it's a billet aluminum one now, and it's got a nice little aluminum folding tip. And as far as position, he just runs it in the neutral position. We do have a couple options of different splines, but Chase is in the standard position right now. Kenny, I think, likes a lot of grip with his bike, where Chase is, he squeezes pretty good, and he doesn't really complain. So we have grip tape on the side that throttle jockey makes us. For me, I run it just because it keeps the frame after every build from getting scratched up. Kind of looks kind of cool too when the bike's all built, looks kind of clean. The valve cover, we run a red cover. That's how the Works Edition comes, and that's magnesium with the coating on it. And then the actual ignition cover is magnesium, and the guys they use like an acid wash to make it look that color. New for 2021 was the front number plate with Cycra. There wasn't a lot of turnaround with getting parts and stuff in, so those guys were on it. We gave them a production front number plate, and we told them we still wanted to cover up the triple clamps, and with the short amount of time that those guys had, they knocked us out a killer front number plate, and it really protects the clamps, brake line holder in there, and it looks trick.